With all the new technology and the abundance of information on the web, you would think that buying or selling or understanding the real estate market would be easier than ever. But ask yourself one question. Now that you've done your homework and you think you know what's going on, what do you do next? Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, and as you know, on Tuesday we do a weekly video blog. Hi, my name is Stewart Fournier of Fournier Fournier, and you know, in real estate, and when we've been practicing as long as we do have, we use generic terms all day long, and we use professional terms all day long, and sometimes we forget that people really don't understand what they mean. And I'm going to talk about today a very simple one that you hear time and time again, and it's all related to real estate, and it's called the MLS. And I wanted to give a description today of what exactly that is, because you know, it's one of those terms that we as realtors sort of take for granted that you know about. And you know, sometimes the simplest things that we take for granted are not understood. So I wanted to talk about the MLS today. And even if you know what the MLS is, I wanted to talk about a few things that you may not know that'll actually add to your education about how the MLS works and how it works as a benefit for you. So even though you probably understand conceptually what it is, or have even worked with it in the past, I want to talk today about some specifics with regard to understanding how important it is to get a sense in your research of looking or buying or selling a home, what role the MLS plays. It's actually a very important role, and I think I'll surprise you with a couple of concepts today. But before we get started, I want to reintroduce myself and my wife, Randy. We are Fournier Fournier. We've been in business for, as Fournier Fournier about 10 years, but we've been in the real estate business for at least well over 18 years separately, so obviously well over 35 years of a combined experience. We practice here in Los Angeles, specifically the South Bay area, South Bay beaches, Manhattan, Hermosa, and Redondo, but we also have listings and practice in Torrance, El Segundo, West LA. We're a little unique in that regard. Our prior businesses allow us a little more breadth of knowledge about areas outside of where we live, and so we're happy to represent in those areas. And our expertise in many, many areas over the many years that we've been in real estate have allowed us to impart some experience to you, because we created this blog for it to be a little more informational about things that you don't necessarily find on the web. As I said on the beach, there's a ton of information out there, and you know, some of it's accurate, most of it's not, quite frankly. I'm going to get into that actually a little bit today, respective of the MLS, and sort of help you along and obviously encourage you to ask us any questions or become involved with us in any way that we can help you forward your goal of either selling or buying a home. We do speak in generalities as much as possible, so for those of you that are seeing this anywhere in the world, we are happy to educate you about real estate in the country. Our licenses, of course, are strictly for the state of California, but most of the concepts we talk about on this broadcast and most of the things that we cover are pretty generalized across the nation as well. This is Facebook Live, so if you happen to be catching me today on camera, you can actually ask me a question and I'm happy to answer it. It doesn't have to relate to today's subject, but I'm happy to go over anything that you'd like to ask. Just as a real brief note before we get started, we have been involved in brand new bills, foreclosures, short sales, 1031 exchanges, commercial. We've done just about everything in real estate that you can imagine, so we're happy to impart as much information as we can. So let's get started. I wanted to talk about the MLS today because nothing could be cloudier than the way commercials industries have basically taken the term over and sort of polluted it. So I kind of wanted to peel back exactly what the MLS is for you today, for you to get an understanding of where all these other people get their information, and I'll be more specific about that in just a second. First of all, what is the MLS? The MLS is the Multiple Listing Service. Now, the multiple listing service is a generic term for just about any location in the United States where there's an association of realtors who've gotten together and have created their own association. Now, interestingly enough, I want to clarify something for you. Just because you have your license in a particular state does not mean that you belong to an association. The MLS is a generic term that all associations use to describe what is called the multiple listing service. In other words, their multiple listing service, but there is not one MLS for the entire country. And that gets really confusing for people because they just assume that we're all just one big family that all shares with one another. And that's partly true, and that's actually growing within the states themselves, but it's not necessarily the case, and I'll explain that in just a second. So why is that important to you, which is really what I want to get to today? Well, an understanding of how these associations work is what's important, and I'll outline right now what I mean by that. Now, if you're a realtor and you've gotten your license and you now need to belong to an association, you do that specifically because you want to become a part of the group that shares information, number one, and then number two, does it in an ethical and professional way, and certainly in accordance with the laws that we learn as we get our real estate licenses. And those three concepts are very important for you to understand. And the reason that those concepts are, they sound like obvious concepts, correct? But from a marketing standpoint, from a research standpoint, why is that important? And the reason that those three reasons are important is that we are obligated to one another to give information on a certain professional level. And that allows us to impart to you, as best we can, a sense of fairness. Now, I pause there on the word fairness because obviously all different people have a different idea what that is. And when we have the commercial, and I'm talking about Zillow, I'm talking about Trulia, I'm talking about those thousands of websites that are not realtors, by the way. For those of you that don't know, Zillow is not a broker, at least in California. I think they have brokerages in other places, but for the most part, they're not real estate brokers. And that's important for a very specific reason, and here's the reason. The reason that that's important is that they don't have the ethical concerns, nor do they have the rules and regulations wherein a multiple listing service has to abide by. And so you don't necessarily get consistent, ethical, and or complete information. So that's why it's always best to go to the source of where the information comes from. Now, interestingly enough, and this is one of those points that I try to make with my clients to encourage them to use licensed realtors that are part of an association. And the reason that we want you to use licensed realtors that are a part of an association is that, believe it or not, when we join the association, we sign a contract that says we will be obliged to each other, and it's for a whole host of ethical reasons outside of the law itself, which of course is where the state comes in and regulates us. But more importantly, that we are all on an equal playing field with regard to the information that we all share. And that's a really big deal for our association. You know, it's very funny. We experienced realtors always sort of chuckle because we realize that one company may claim a certain marketing approach, whereas another company is, counteracting that approach and saying theirs is better. Well, the truth of the matter is that we all of the companies that are belonging to an association sign a contract. That is, not the companies, but the individuals, we as realtors, all sign a contract that says, you know what, we're all going to share the same information, and we're all going to share it in a certain way. And there's a huge litany of criteria that we're obligated to each other to share that information. Now, it's very naive for me to make that generalization and say that other other companies don't have separate marketing or networking groups that know information more so than others. That happens all the time, of course. But in general, that is not the way we're supposed to do business. The way we're supposed to do business is that we're supposed to share our information as quickly and as thoroughly as possible with each other. Now, let me give a little bit of perspective on that. In my association, I think we have, I want to say 8 or 9 cities that are involved in our association. We have about 6,000 people that have signed that piece of paper, that contract within our association that says we'll share. So, as you can imagine, with 6,000 people, there's a lot of interpretation as to how we address that litany of ethical concerns and information that we impart. So I'm certainly not going to get into any of that detail, but I just want to let you know how structured it really is, how we do, in fact, need to share and do share. Now, I'll give you one small example. As for example, when we take a listing, that is, when we go to someone's house and ask them to work with us and we contract to sell that house, we are obligated to also, within 48 hours, put your house on the market with our multiple listing service. Now, if you choose not to have, for any reason, your house on the multiple listing service, we actually have to provide you with a piece of paper that says you're agreeing for us not to do that. Now, that's not even the tip of the iceberg with respect to the way we approach how we deal with notifying you and notifying other realtors about the fact that your house is now on the market. So I'm going to leave it at there and let you know that that's why it's so important that you connect with a licensed realtor who belongs to an association, not just a licensed realtor, but one who belongs to an association, because that realtor is dedicated to the other 6,000, in our case, of real estate agents, and we're dedicated to them contractually about the way that we operate. So if you want to know more information about that, or if you have any concern with regard to how a realtor is acted or what some of the regulations are that we abide by, I'm happy to answer those questions. You can call me at any time. I don't know if I neglected to mention we are on Facebook Live, so if you have a question even today, I'll be happy to answer that. Okay. As a result, as a result of the ethical concerns, and as a result of how we owe each other, that is realtor to realtor, accurate information, and if we don't give it, or if we are at all negligent about it, there are some consequences for it, which I won't get into. Then just know that that exists. But I guess the point that I was trying to make is that as a result of the concerns or the constraints that we work under to oblige one another with the way that we operate, that is the reason that the MLS provides the most accurate information. Now, again, Zillow, Trulia, any other portal that is not licensed, that is not a part of an association as a result, is a commercial venture that actually uses our information. So let me just clarify that a little bit. The first thing that happens when we go out and we get a listing contract is we come back, we put it on the MLS. It's at that time that commercial industries then feed into our portal and take that information from us. And as a result, they are not obligated to be as professional, to be as ethical, and more importantly for you, the consumer, or the buyer or the seller, accurate about their information. They simply don't have any legal obligation. They have no ethical obligation. They can basically do whatever they want. Now, this goes back about 10, 15 years ago when we gave them permission to do this, and most of us who've been in the business for a long time never understood why we did that in the first place. But the fact of the matter is the genie was out of the bottle, has been out of the bottle for a very long time, and now we have the setup that we do. I think it's unfortunate, but that's a whole different story. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you get information other than from a realtor who belongs to an association, the information that you get does not have to be accurate. It does not have to be precise. It does not have to be dealt with in any ethical concerns. It can be whatever it wants. It's basically free speech. I have some real concerns about that, but again, that's a subject for another time. So my point is that if you want accurate information wherein you're not going to be misled and you want to save time, another reason to work with realtors that, again, are licensed, obviously, and number two, belong to an association. Very important point. And we all have the ability to give you that information just like any other commercial interest does, to give it to you directly from us, wherein you can guarantee, as a result of the way our association works, that it's going to be accurate information. So therein lies a difference. Now, unfortunately, what that's done from a strictly marketing standpoint is it does tie our hands a little bit. The fact of the matter is that some of these websites actually provide information to you that you could care less about, respective of the way realtors have to operate. Some of them just have better open house notifications. Some of them have better graphs because they're not obligated to have everything as accurate. So that's why, again, it's best to come to a realtor and ask them that information so you get the real scoop on things. Again, from a commercial standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, some of these sites are extremely attractive, and we understand that. But we can't always compete with that because we have different obligations to you as the seller or the buyer or potential clients that these commercial ventures don't have. So I think I've hammered that point about as much as I can at this point. Okay. Gosh. Okay. One last thing. Anybody have any questions? You know what? I keep meaning to put this up here for those. No, that's not it. Is that it? No, that's not it. There it is. Ask a question. It's not easy being your own director here. Okay. Why is that not coming? There it is. Okay. Ask a question and get a free coffee bean card. Before we go up the air, happy to answer any questions about this today. I'll leave you with this as far as our discussion today about the MLS goes. If you have any further questions about the MLS, how it works, or how I can have it apply to you, please let me know. The one last thing I will cover is that as a result of the fact that everything has become so networked successfully, MLSs are across California are starting to come together to the point where, even though I belong, for example, to the South Bay Association of Realtors here in Southern California, in the Beach Cities area, but right across the way, up in the West LA area, there's another association called the MLS, and then there's another association above that. I don't know what the name of that association is. There's an Orange County association. The point that I'm trying to make here is that all those associations are now connecting together with their own portal. So even though I don't necessarily belong to the association that's in the Valley or in Orange County, we actually all share the same portals now. And actually, we pretty much cover all of California. So on my website, or on my ability to send you information, I can actually give you information from just about any location in California. That's the one thing that has changed in just the last few years, actually. So not only is our information, as again I've said, ad nauseum today, that it's more precise and it's accurate, but it's also starting to expand. I don't think we'll get outside the state, but for the most part, if you have any concern about any house in California, we can address that issue. Okay? So, we do this every Tuesday at 10 a.m. I would love to get some subject matter that you're concerned about and talk about on the air. As you can see, I tear these things apart as closely to the bone as I can for you, and at the same time speak in generalities. But we'd love to impart some information for any concerns that you have. Again, we do this. You don't have to wait till Tuesday at 10 a.m. you can simply ask a question in our comment section, and we'll be happy to tear it apart for you. Once again, we're going to put a link to an app connected to this video that is called the Fournier app. It'll take you to our website page that will enable you to get an app that allows you to take a picture of any house in America, that is, any house in the country. You can literally be just driving by a house, take a picture, and that picture will reveal everything about that house, respective of its value, other houses in the area, their values, the neighbors next door, their value. It'll also give you a marketing report on that particular house. It'll tell you about the schools that are connected to that particular house. It'll give you a history of when that house was sold. A lot of great information. Every day I go on that app and I find something new that it provides. And so we want to give that app to you as well. Just go ahead and click down, give us your email, and we'll set you right up. Another advantage of that app is that you can actually talk to us if you're taking a picture and you're working with the app. The app is in real time, and so you can actually take a picture if there's something on there that you want to know immediately, or you can't figure out something on the app. You can simply ask us a question on the app. We get it right on our phone, and we'll be happy to answer. Once again, we don't see that you're on the app until you actually talk to us, so we're not spying on you, and we're not going to bother you if you use the app. Okay? Well, again, we'll see you next Tuesday, everyone, at 10 a.m. And again, give me a subject matter. I'd love to tear it apart for you. Bye-bye, everyone.